Some of the world's most notorious murderers have lived and killed in perfectly ordinary homes, from million-dollar mansions and charming craftsman-style cottages to respectable apartments and sleepy suburban houses. Even the most innocent-looking home can harbor a monster. Join me as we reveal the dark truth behind the doors of the world's worst killers, including John Wayne Gacy, the Wolf Creek Killer, and many others. Up first, we go to Alex Murdaugh's country estate. Powerful and affluent, Alex Murdaugh was born into a prominent legal family in the low country region of South Carolina. Such way their sway, the local 14th Judicial District became known as the Murdaugh Country. But power can corrupt, and that may have been the case for Alex Murdaugh, who was sentenced of widespread financial crimes and is linked to a string of suspicious deaths and murders. He bought Moselle from his business partner, a suspected drug smuggler who signed over the house to Murdaugh for just $5 in 2013. Later, at the Murdaugh trials, jurors heard that he had stolen $750,000 in insurance money from Boulware while he was dying of cancer. But it gets way worse. It's hard to believe this charming farmhouse lies at the heart of a dark and complex case with more twists and turns than a primetime thriller. Known as Moselle, the nearly 1,800-acre South Carolina estate was home to Alex Murdaugh, once the heir to a local legal empire and now convicted double murderer. The story gained global attention as the focus of the recent Netflix documentary Murdaugh Murders, a Southern Scandal. 3 more mysterious deaths are linked to Alex Murdaugh and his family, one of which took place right here on the front steps of Moselle. With its wraparound porch and white weatherboard siding, Moselle appears the perfect picture of Southern charm. But it was on a rural road close to the hunting estate that the first murder connected to the family took place. In July of 2015, the bludgeoned body of 19-year-old Stephen Smith was found by the side of the road. In a heartbreaking letter from the boy's mother to local authorities, she accused Murdaugh's oldest son, Buster, of beating Stephen to death. The case went cold and has been recently reopened due to information that came to light during a later and separate murder investigation. The next death to take place at the remote home was that of the family's housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, in February 2018. The 57-year-old fell down the front steps of the house, hitting her head and dying in the hospital 3 weeks later. As the Satterfield's lawyer, Murdaugh pocketed more than $4.3 million in insurance, which should have gone to Gloria's family. Much later, it would be revealed that Murdaugh had decades-long history of fraud and money laundering. The next death linked to the prestigious family was 19-year-old Mallory Beach, who died in February of 2019 when Paul, Murdaugh's younger son, crashed their boat while intoxicated. Mallory was thrown into the water and her body was found 8 days later. Her family filed a wrongful death suit against the Murdaughs, and that's where the story becomes even darker. On the 7th of June 2021, while 22-year-old Paul was awaiting trial, he and his mother Maggie were murdered among the outbuildings of the family home. It was here in the feed room by the dog kennels that Alex Murdaugh shot and killed his son. He then turned on his wife, shooting her as she tried to take shelter beneath a hanger. Murdaugh claimed he had arrived home to his wife and son dead, but blood spatter and cell phone footage placed him at the scene. Perhaps surprisingly, given the estate's dark past, it sold for $3.9 million in 2023. On the banks of the river, the estate has a fully stocked fish pond, rifle shooting range, and 20-acre dove field for feeding doves for then hunting. Murdaugh and his sons were keen hunters, regularly invited to go fishing and shooting. In March of 2023, Alex Murdaugh was convicted of murdering his wife and son and is currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Up next, we go to Phil Spector's California Castle Mansion. With its turrets and grand entrance, Phil Spector's California mansion looked like a fairy tale castle, while what happened inside its white walls was a real-life horror story. Perched upon a hilltop, hidden away in lush gardens behind tall gates and soaring trees, the house gives no hint of the tragedy that took place here in 2003. When the legendary music producer murdered actress and nightclub hostess Lana Clarkson. Spector was known as a musical genius who produced most in the 1960s and worked with the Beatles, Tina Turner, and the Righteous Brothers. His iconic wall of sound style influenced many more, including the Beach Boys and Bruce Springsteen, but success turned scandal in February of 2003 when he met 40-year-old Clarkson at a bar and then took her home. His chauffeur heard a gunshot, and moments later, Spector appeared holding a gun and said, "I think I killed somebody." Crime scene photos give us a glimpse at what the 10-bedroom house looked like at the time. The hallway where Clarkson was found dead was decorated with plush red carpets, a huge chandelier, elaborate vases, and an elegant wooden banister. Spector insisted at his trial that Clarkson had killed herself, but he was found guilty of second-degree murder in 2009 and was sentenced to serve 19 years to life. He died from COVID complications in 2021 at the age of 81. At the time of the murder, Spector's home looked dated. Police photos of his living room show a plastic flower arrangement, an elaborate coffee table, and a floral rug. Despite its tragic history, when the house was sold by his former wife in 2021, the listing showed that very little had been changed. Most of the ornaments and furniture had been pared back, but the coffee table along with the wood paneling, inlaid floors, and crystal chandeliers remained. The infamous home spans almost 11,000 square feet across 2 wings, which spread from the hallway in which Clarkson's body was found. Although it has a large bar, a billiards room, 11 bathrooms, and a fountain in the driveway, the castle eventually sold for $3.3 million, significantly less than the original asking price of $5.5, but a big jump from the $1.1 Spector paid for it in 1998, which would be around $1.8 million today. Up next, we go to the LandLady's Death House. This Victorian-style home, complete with a charming porch and miniature windmill in the front garden, was home to a community-spirited landlady who cared for the less fortunate in her quiet neighborhood. What could be more wholesome? But all was not as it seemed behind the curtains of this house. The seemingly sweet old lady was Dorothy Puente, a ruthless murderer who killed as many as 9 of her tenants and cashed in on their social security checks after burying their bodies in the garden. Puente set herself up as a landlady in the Mansion Flats area of Sacramento in the early 1980s, housing vulnerable tenants whom she drugged and murdered. Between 1982 and 1988, 9 of her lodgers vanished before police became suspicious. 7 bodies were unearthed in the garden of her pale blue boarding house, with a further 3 found in the Sacramento River. In 1993, the Death House landlady was found guilty of 3 of the murders, and she died in a California prison in the year 2011 at the age of 83. Puente's infamous house still stands today, although the interior is a far cry from the dark rooms depicted in the crime scene photos. Built in 1968, the house is now a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom duplex, and the current owners, Tom Williams and Barbara Holmes, bought the wood frame home in 2010 for $226,000. They said, "Our bathroom was Dorothy's utility room, where she laid out the bodies of her victims after she killed them." Williams said, "The whole floor has been cleaned and remodeled since, so it doesn't bother us. The one thing that has remained the same is the stairway. Dorothy used to drag bodies down it and into the yard," William adds. Today, the garden is adorned with a light-hearted nods to its dark past. One sign reads, "Trespassers will be drugged and buried in the yard," and a shovel-wielding gray-haired figure guards the remodeled deck. Today, the house is valued at $656,000, a healthy sum considering the crazy history. Up next, we go to the Santa Claus killer's home. It's one thing for a serial killer to hide their victims on their own property, but quite another to bury them in someone else's garden. Yet this is exactly what 66-year-old Bruce McArthur did. Between 2010 and 2017, Canada's oldest ever serial killer murdered 8 men, preying on the male community of the church, trolling the streets for victims and targeting them via dating apps. Father and grandfather, McArthur was a landscape gardener and occasional mall Santa, which earned him the nickname of the Santa Claus Killer. One of McArthur's landscaping clients told Time.com, "To know that something as insane as this was transpiring over the years is pretty astounding." Although McArthur killed his victims in his own home, he hid the remains in plant pots belonging to one of his clients. McArthur brought men back to his apartment in the Thorncliffe Park area of Toronto, where he photographed them before and after killing them. The apartment block still exists today as one of the pair of the Brutalis-style towers. Standing 423 feet tall with 43 floors, they were once the tallest apartments in the Commonwealth and are described as luxury towers. According to CTV News, police forensic teams spent several weeks examining McArthur's 19th-floor apartment. They removed 1,800 pieces of evidence, leaving the space pretty much empty, and took more than 18,000 photographs of the unit and its contents. Combined with the search of other crime scenes and vehicles related to Bruce McArthur, this is the largest forensic examination in Toronto Police Service history. Following McArthur's arrest, police searched an attractive Leaside home and found the remains of 7 victims hidden in multiple plant pots around the garden. Employed to cut the grass, McArthur would eat his lunch among the planters and rearrange them from time to time. The garden gives way to a hillside where further remains were found. Owner Karen Fraser told a BBC documentary that she was devastated, upset, shocked, and betrayed, having found out that this was going on at her house. Up next, we go to John Wayne Gacy's home. John Wayne Gacy was a friendly local contractor known for his performances as Pogo the Clown at hospitals and children's parties. He lived in an inconspicuous brick ranch-style home in Chicago's Norwood Park. No one could have guessed that hidden in the crawl space beneath his property lay the remains of 26 boys and young men. An additional 3 bodies were discovered buried in trenches in his garden, while another 4 were found in the river. After his arrest in December of 1978, Gacy verbally admitted to 33 murders, each of which he claimed that were carried out at his home. He had hired many of the young men to work for him at his construction company, gaining their trust and inviting them into his home. According to Newsgeek, Gacy bought the house in the 1970s with financial help from his mother after relocating from Iowa, where he had served 18 months in prison for assaulting a 15-year-old boy. Just 4 months after his arrest, Gacy's home was torn down, partially because it had become a safety hazard, according to the Chicago Tribune. The plot laid empty until 1986 when a local woman bought it and built a new house on it. The address was then changed to prevent visits by murder tourists. The 3-bedroom, 2,500 square foot house features 2 dormer windows that dominate the roofline and a large arched window on the ground floor, which looks out onto the trees in the front garden. A news article detailed the build and quoted a neighbor who was very satisfied with the construction. They said, "I want this to be a normal neighborhood again." According to NBC Chicago, the ranch-style home was put on the market in 2019, eventually selling 20 months later for $395,000, significantly below the original asking price, but a decent increase on the $300,000 that they paid for it in 2004. Suspicions persist about a 5-unit apartment block where Gacy worked as a maintenance man. A retired police detective who lived close by told The Verge in 2013 that he encountered Gacy alone outside the property at 3 a.m. one night in 1975. He was holding a spade. Other neighbors reported seeing Gacy digging trenches at the property and in one case dragging a heavy bag across Miami Avenue in the middle of the night. So far, no remains have been found at the property, which still stands. Up next, we go to the Chop Chop Murder House. The southeast neighborhood of Boise is rated as one of the best places to live in Idaho, with young professionals choosing it for its good schools and proximity to Boise State University. Unsurprisingly, this is reflected in the house prices, which are on the way up. What might be surprising though is that even a home with a murky past will still cost you a pretty penny. This includes the infamous Chop Chop Murder House, where in 1987, 21-year-old Preston Murr was shot and killed. Currently worth an estimated $585,000 by Zillow, the house belonged to Daniel Rogers. It was he, along with complice Darren Cox, who murdered Murr. The pair dismembered the body in the basement and dumped it over 100 miles away in the Brownlee Reservoir, where it was discovered a week later. Rogers was found guilty of the murder and sentenced to life without parole, while Cox served just 6 years. Built in 1910, the 2-story house has 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a garage, deck, and what Zillow describes as an unfinished basement. The home sits on a 17,000 square foot plot, surrounded by mature trees and flowering shrubs. The full sales history of the imposing craftsman-style home is unclear, but it is reported by Redfin to have been sold in April of 1988 for $71,000, just 8 months after the killings took place, and then again in the year 2000. In 2022, tenants shared their memories of the house with local radio station Light FM. Shelley A. lived there in the 90s, but never heard or saw anything strange. It was a very beautiful home structurally, and with a little love could be restored to brand new. Up next, we go to the Wolf Creek Killer's home. Ivan Millett lived here with his sister in the popular family neighborhood of Eagle Vale, 25 miles from Sydney. His neighbors described him as a normal, unassuming guy, according to the Daily Telegraph, and said he had a very nice house with a nice yard. They could never have imagined the man who lived among them in this respectable brick home was the Wolf Creek Killer, a serial murderer who killed 7 victims between the years 1989 to 1993. Also known as the Backpacker Murders, these brutal killings targeted both foreign tourists and local travelers passing through the region. The victims, aged 19 to 22, were stabbed, shot, beaten, and even decapitated. He kept guns at the house, and photographs show him posing with firearms in his living room, which was plainly yet elegantly decorated with pale blue curtains and Queen Anne-style side table. When police raided the property, they found trophies taken from his victims, hidden in the roof and wall cavities. Ivan was arrested at his home on May 2, 1994, and convicted in 1996. He received 7 consecutive life sentences, and he died at the age of 74 in prison in 2019, having never admitted to any of his crimes. The victims' remains were discovered in the remote state forest 85 miles from Sydney over a 4-year period. All the murderers shared similarities. Bodies were dumped in the remote bushland, covered with a crude pyramid of sticks and ferns. For a time, the investigation pointed to multiple killers until matching 22 bullet shell casings and cartridge boxes linked the crime scenes. Forensics revealed multiple stab wounds and signs of sexual assault, and campsites found near the bodies indicated prolonged interaction, meaning Ivan spent significant time there with the victims. The 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home now has modern interiors, an outdoor dining area, and a small swimming pool surrounded by flowering trees. It was then put on the market again in 2016 and described as a well-presented home, stress-free haven on sunny north-facing block. Although after finally selling, the new current owner told Vice, "We came to look at the house and we really liked it, but no one told us of its dark past." And the new owner said, "I do believe that bad energies or evilness can hang around." He said, "You just get a strange, uneasy feeling while hanging out in this house." Alright everyone, I think that's going to wrap this video up, like I mentioned in the beginning, follow all my social media, and also 50% of the people who watch me don't subscribe. So just, if you're watching, just click the subscribe button. It's free, it means a lot. And then an alternative option would be to become a member, which costs a couple dollars, but then, you know, I'll be calling you guys, FaceTiming you guys, you get cool badges, you get exclusive videos. I'll be making videos that I can't show, like public channel. So you guys get a ton of cool features and by clicking here and becoming a member. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I love you guys. Thank you for the constant support. Feel free to share this video on anything, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.